All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good buddy Chris Faraone. Chris is an independent journalist. He is the news editor at Dig Boston. He is the author of several books, including His Honoroo, I Killed Andrew Breitbart, and 99 Nights with the 99%, all of which you can find at righttopower.net. You can also find him on Twitter at Faraone. Chris, buddy, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Oh, man, anytime.
All right, so Chris, you actually had a couple of really frightening articles recently at Dig Boston, which again is digboston.com, about facial recognition software and data at a giant. So in Boston, I'll let you lay it down, but at a giant, there's a big Boston rock concert festival that happens twice a year down here, and apparently there is some massive facial recognition software being rolled out at this place. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, first I of course have to acknowledge my co-writers. So that's Kenneth Lipp, who's a writer out of Philly, and Jonathan Riley, who's definitely a young, a really talented young writer. You'll be seeing more from, not just in Boston, but he's down in D.C. working with the CNN investigative unit. But now that I got my plugs out of the way, so Kenneth is a pretty remarkable researcher, and he came to me a couple of months ago with a trove of data that he actually found exposed on the internet, not hacked by any means, but just something that was floating around on an FTP server. That FTP server belonged to an IBM consultant who had been working with the city of Boston, as it turns out, on a massive data dive where they used something called face capture on every single person who entered this event, Boston Calling. So this is a huge concert, our entire City Hall Plaza, and that was 2013 was actually the first year that it happened. So that was May of 2013, and what we found were basically the presentations and the documents of IBM selling this to the city of Boston, saying this is what we can do. We can use this face capture software. It's basically like a ramping up of the technology that's already there. So IBM wasn't exactly saying they would provide more hardware. That hardware is already in place. There's from what we know, there's no definite answer, but there are thousands of cameras around Boston, from the trains to the sky. And this was what we really have was we have a very clear picture of what IBM came offering to the city service-wise.
So what exactly did they offer? What does this software do? What did the presentation? What do they offer to the city? What does supposedly this software actually do?
It's really amazing to see. The reason I really think this story was such a big hit and was picked up by more than 100 outlets across the country, and actually some overseas as well, is that this is a real inside look at how people talk when they don't think anybody's looking. How easily civil liberties are disregarded. So basically what we have is a presentation in which IBM shows the city of Boston these techniques which they've used elsewhere, which imagine, okay, so I'm about 5'10", I have a beard, and sometimes I'll be wearing glasses and kind of a bald shaved head. Now, this technology, this IBM, and IBM also works with other smaller subcontractors to kind of, hone these innovations, can basically give me a score based on all those characteristics that I just listed: hair, eyes, etc. Also, the skin tone is one of them, so they're actually literally racially profiling. And so what we see is IBM showing the city of Boston, hey, look, we have this technology that does this, that parses people along these various metrics. Not only that, it stores all this information. And we'll get to that in a second, because the storage is really an important element here. But the picture painted was IBM coming to the city of Boston in the wake of the marathon bombing of 2013. And we're talking about days, the days after and the week after, putting the heavy sales pitch on the city. And in response, what we end up getting is, and I should note that this is under the last administration of Tom Menino, not the current administration of Marty Walsh. They're not using this technology at the moment anymore. But for these two events in May and September of 2013, we now know that, that whole presentation came to life, that it was actually carried out using the young people mostly who went to this Boston Calling series of concerts as guinea pigs.
Wow. So, I mean, when you look at the report, they actually have some of this. You guys have the slides here of it's like multiple attribute query, skin tone, dark, head color, black, torso color, yellow, and then African American wearing yellow shirt and eyeglasses. It's like what this actually delves down to is pretty crazy. So, talk about how this was actually implicated at these massive concerts, because this is sort of Boston Calling is essentially kind of like a Lollapalooza or a Bonnaroo, smaller scale than those, but that happens over a 3-day festival down in downtown Boston. What actually went down at these concerts when this stuff was implicated? What was used essentially?
And we actually have amazingly, Kent Lip, my co-writer, actually has found pictures of the command center where the various operatives, so they're from different agencies, the city, the police, the transit police, are watching and basically monitoring these activities. There had been a beta rollout of this, by the way, during the marathon that got bombed in 2013, but it hadn't been hooked up to the first responders on the finish line. So it was kind of just like a true trial. Whereas the first Boston Calling in May 2013, they really rolled it out. So I believe, off the top of my head, I think there were 10 or 12 cameras equipped with this facial capture, and it's called intelligent video analysis. So we're not talking about, as I wrote in the article, we're not talking about your old black and white surveillance cameras. What they did here and what they actually carried out was they recorded more than 50 hours across all the cameras, and we also we've found that footage as well. And what they did was, they analyzed. They basically ran a trial where they took all this video and they crunched a bunch. They separated a bunch of metadata out of it, and we've also located that metadata. What they did with it, as far as that, they weren't making arrests. I should also note that one of the things they did is it was an analysis of social media, which, as anybody who uses social media can tell you, is basically something anybody can do with a free Hootsuite account. But this is, of course, it's really despicable, because there's always all these side tangents when you do a story like this. And one of the important ones here, and one that's definitely resonated with a lot of people I've done interviews with and just spoken with about the article, is the amount of waste. I mean, we're talking about, as far as this social media, we're talking about a tool that my 10-year-old cousin could do for free. And so what they do is they monitor the crowd. They actually, and we posted on one of the articles on the sequel, some of the images, the screenshots of, they monitored anytime anybody who was at Boston Calling tweeted something that had the word help in it, or the word, I think, scared. They didn't react to it, nor do I believe that this police should have. But still, it's kind of like this thing where, okay, well, what was the point of it? It seems to experts I've spoken with, this really was just like a grand experiment in facial recognition. And, sadly, it appears to violate at the very least, the Fourth Amendment.